Hello, and welcome to the Canadian Story, where we discuss what Canada is, what Canada could be, and what Canada should be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Canadian Story. Today, we are joined by Mr. Martyupnorth. Marty, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Happy to be here. A little foggy because it's early, but totally happy to be here.
Well, thanks for getting up and starting the day with us. So, Marty, why don't you just brief your background for us so that people know who they're listening to, what you do for work, what you're all about?
Okay. So actually, if you saw my original tweet, I sort of put my story in that tweet, but I'll repeat it. I'm an Ontario-born Canadian. Went to university in Ottawa, and then graduated at the height of the Depression and moved to Alberta. Not the height of the Depression, but during a downturn in the economy. Moved to Alberta in 1990, looking for work. Ended up up north, and that's kind of why I get that moniker over the years, Martyupnorth. I spent 20 years in northern Alberta. I'm an engineer. I'm a trained engineer, and my entire 30 plus year career is oil and gas. Great career that got me across the country and internationally. And met my wife while working up north. We have 4 kids and transferred a lot over the years, mostly in Alberta, but we moved around. And then for the last 6 or 7 years, I've been settled in on a nice acreage northwest of Calgary in the country, and I got a gorgeous view of the mountains. And prior to this whole hashtag explosion, let's call it, I was just an average guy working who would retreat to his home on weekends. But I did have a small YouTube presence because I'm known as a guy who likes to go hiking. So if you knew me prior as Martyupnorth, you might have known me as a hiker through that channel. So that's me.
Amazing. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about, I want to know what your experience in northern Alberta was like. What is northern Alberta like? What is it like working oil up there? It's something that a lot of Canadians end up doing. Even I live in Ontario. I have friends here who went out west because they needed to make some good money, and there was money to be made in Alberta. What is that experience up there like?
Well, let me give you a little bit of context. So when I graduated, I was looking for work, and an American oil company said, if you can get your butt here, we'll interview you. So I got my butt all the way across Canada from actually I'd been to. When I was going to school, I had tasted the working in Alberta because I'd done 2 work terms in Alberta. But so I graduate. This company says, if you get your butt to Calgary, we'll interview you. And so I'm in Calgary, and there's 40 people being interviewed for about 5 jobs. And I'm a smart guy, relatively. I said, is there a place where nobody wants to go? And they said, yeah, Fox Creek, and which is in northern Alberta. I mean, if you're in Fox Creek and you go an hour in any direction, then nothing. And but it was a great question because I was actually prepared to go there anyways, because I wanted to start my career in the field, not in the downtown office. So, is there a place nobody wants to go? He's like, yeah, Fox Creek. I'm like, I'll go. If I go to Fox Creek, do I get a job? The guy goes, yeah. I'm like, I'll go to Fox Creek. And what's it like to work in northern Alberta? So I landed in Alberta, and I've said this before. I didn't come here because of my values, but when I came here, I found people with similar values, and it was like, wow, I'm home. It was literally like I'm home.
What values?
And before coming here, I remember having that chat with my dad when I'm packing my car on my way to Fox Creek, and Dad had traveled the country as a salesman kind of thing, and Dad said, "We'll never see you again." And in fact, when I got married, a decade later, my parents were at the wedding here in Alberta. And when I was giving a speech, I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but I said, Mom, stop asking because I'm not coming home. Okay. This is my home. So and working in northern Alberta, the reason I connected like that is because we're all there for a purpose. Some are not. I mean, some are born in northern Alberta, but in the town where I was, we're all there for that purpose. We all came there because we wanted to work. We wanted to get on with our lives. We wanted to prove something. We wanted to solve problems, and the oil patch for me gave me that. Real problems to solve, problems that need to be solved, and then solutions that benefit a bunch of people. And so I have no regrets, and I'm never apologetic about having worked in the oil patch.
Oh, you should never be apologetic for that. You have probably relieved more human misery from your work just by producing energy than most doctors do. I think people don't understand that the modern world is impossible without the work that you did. I was just talking to a friend of mine who was a welder for 15 years before he started a podcast called the Social Disorder Podcast. His name is Drew Weatherhead. And he worked in not at the level you did as an engineer, but in that. And he said, and I wanted your opinion on this, but he said, all these people criticizing how much money we make in Alberta don't realize how hard people work to get there. Right?
And we're going to talk about that. Somehow or other, we're going to roll that into the conversation, because that explains it. It's something that I feel. I will say that we're going to get to that, because I was a typical Albertan with head down, ass up, just getting work done. And we knew that we're making money, and good money. And we knew some of the money was going out east through transfer payments. And I couldn't care less. For the majority of my life, I couldn't care less. I only started caring about politics in 2014. So, we can get back to that. But did we lose Dave, or he just lost?
I'm here. My video seems to have crashed on me, but that's okay. I'm still here.
but while you were talking, the first thing I wanted to say though is, so I'm unapologetic about working in the oil patch. That's fair. And then the other thing that's interesting for me over the years is I have had a presence on YouTube for a decade where I was known as a backpacker and enjoyer, a guy who enjoys the outdoors. And an interesting phenomenon that I often had to deal with was people would find out that I was an engineer in the oil patch, and then they would get critical of me, and they'd say, "How can you be an engineer in the oil patch and love nature so much?" I'm like, bingo. Okay, now we're going to have an engagement, because one of the core beliefs of mine is that I'm working to reconcile that. And people would say I'm a hypocrite. I'm not a hypocrite. In fact, it's the quite opposite. As a human being, we need resources, and we will exploit the resources, and we always have an impact on the environment. All human activity has an impact on the environment. But I love the environment. So I'm not a hypocrite to work in the environment and want to enjoy the environment. That's the quest of being human, as far as I'm concerned. So I digress.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I get that in the hunting world too, because the way I engage with the outdoors is I hunt, and people all the time say, "Well, how could you do that? You're killing animals. You're terrible." And usually this is coming from people who also eat animals, which is hilarious in the first place. But the thing about hunters, I don't know a group of people, maybe I just need to be introduced to more people who work in the oil fields, but I don't know a group of people that care about the environment around them more.
Whether it's hunters, fishermen, Ducks Unlimited, some of the greatest conservation efforts are by hunters. I mean, the deer have been brought back to North America. The deer were almost extinct, and thanks to hunters, they're back. I'm a big hunter. I'm actually leaving tomorrow for 10 days. I won't be available to the world for the next 10 days because I'm going moose hunting.
That's okay. So we're getting a little sidetracked here, but tell me about your moose hunt. I'm doing my first moose hunt this year ever, and I'm super, super excited about it. But tell me about yours. Where are you going?
I'm heading in the part of the world called Grand Cache, which is I would definitely call that much northern Alberta. And I've been going there for 25 years. It's from my origins of living in that part of the world. And the area where I go hunting is very hard to access, very, very inaccessible. And it's a core group of about 6 of us that go. I've been going every year. In fact, I told somebody the other day, one of the things on my list to do is I have to go get a birthday present for my daughter quickly and give it to her tomorrow. My poor daughter, she's 28 years old. She'll be 29 on Friday. I have missed 25 of my daughter's 29 birthdays because I've been in the bush hunting. That's how much I like hunting.
Well, amazing. Well, best of luck to you this fall. And I want to reiterate the point. I don't know anyone who cares about the environment more than hunters, because they're constantly engaged in it and they constantly see the repercussions of what we do to the surrounding area, and they are always interested in preserving that. Yeah. So that's just an interesting little tidbit. Why don't we hop ahead into kind of like the reason we're all here? What happened to you recently that we should maybe talk about?
What happened to me recently? In fact, what happened to me almost didn't happen because I was supposed to go hunting. So, I discovered Twitter in the last little while, the last 3-4 years. And on Twitter, I was known as a guy who was talking about COVID and trying to disseminate through that information. And I'm trying to get past COVID. Okay. So if you look at my timeline on Twitter, it's a little bit boring lately, but suddenly and I'm supposed to go hiking last week. I even said that on Twitter. See you guys. Smoke in the mountains. So I come back home last Tuesday. I'm sitting down at my desk in the morning and having a little dialogue with somebody. And the topic of a particular video, the video of Justin Trudeau in French, talking on La Semaine des 4 Juillet. And I remember that video, and it came up during the conversation. So during that engagement on Twitter. And the engagement ended. And then I'm looking at that video, and I decided I wanted to put captions on that video. And as I'm listening to the video in French, because I'm putting English captions, I'm bilingual, by the way. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, wow. And so for the viewers who might not know, let me paraphrase what the video says. It's an interview of Justin Trudeau during our election campaign last year, and he's on a French network in Quebec, and he says something along the lines of, our way. And he was campaigning, and when he was campaigning on his wedge issue, I would say, was COVID. And so he said to the host, our way out of this pandemic is through vaccination. There's still people that are opposed, but some are fiercely opposed to it. And then she interjects, the host, she says they're usually extremists. And then he fed off of that. And Trudeau says, yes, and they're also often anti-science, misogynistic, racist. Then he goes on and he says, which leads me as a leader of the country to ask myself, do we tolerate these people? Because the rest of you guys, the Quebecers at the time, 80% of you have done the right thing and you got vaccinated. So I was like, holy smokes, if I unravel that, he's using a broad stroke to stereotype a group of people that are in disagreement with him. He's calling them all sorts of nasty names, anti-science, misogynistic. He's questioning whether we need to tolerate them, which we are in a democracy. That debate ended 100 years ago. That's not, and we'll come back. That's a great topic. And then, so I just got mad. I got mad. I mean, and I could almost, if I need to get mad instantly, I can do it. All I have to remember is the guy who stole my snowmobile will make me mad, or I can put Justin Trudeau's voice in my head and I'll get mad. So I got mad, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to say something. So I found a picture, about a year-old picture of myself. I put it there, and then I just wrote, hey, Justin, I'm Martin. I'm 55. I'm a father, son, husband, engineer, spending 35 years, family or volunteer, hockey coach. And according to you, I'm a radical who needs to be dealt with. And I'm not claiming originality for that concept. I mean, you almost can't claim any originality for any concept on the internet anymore. It's like trying to come up with a brand new telethon or something like that. So, am I absolutely original there? No, I probably saw something similar to that. But then I kind of wanted to address it to Justin. So I'm going to use a hashtag, and I don't use a lot of hashtags if you go through my timeline. So I'm just typing, hashtag Justin must go. And that's it. it was there, and then hit the send button, go outside, and go mow my lawn and do a few things. I mean, I'm at home because I told everybody I was going to go to the mountains, and I didn't have any work. I work as a contractor. I do contract work for people. So that's the context. You want me to,
Yeah, I want to know what happened. Like, what would it feel like to suddenly come back and realize you started arguably the largest political Twitter movement in the entire country ever? I'm not aware of a bigger one.
Yeah,
I study these things.
Yeah. So how does it? So then, so at that point, I've had 2 Twitter accounts blasted in the past for getting too close to their, whatever they call it, their policy guidelines. I mean, I got to the point where I'm paranoid. One of the things I did is I always, whenever I referenced anything relating to COVID, I was always putting the references and links and stuff like that, which is why I wasn't used to putting hashtags. But anyways, I've had 2 accounts blasted, and this one, and I never got above 5,000 people, but lately I had 8,000 people last week. Okay, cool. So I have 8,000 followers, whatever. People want to hear what I have to say. And so I click, go away, come back a couple of hours later, and it's like, I got all these notices. Holy shit, man. And I go look, and I'm like, whoa, I got 2,000 likes. Okay, that's cool. That, and I've had tweets before that resonated with people. I've had 2,000, but it ain't stopping, man. It's going. And then there's retweets. And I'm pretty familiar. I understand the concepts of being ratioed and the value of retweets and things like that. So I'm like, okay, something's happening. I'm being retweeted, but then something really magical happens. And it's like, I'm not just being retweeted. As I'm being retweeted, people are posting their own picture, their own story, and a slight twist. Some people would say, according to Justin, I'm a racist. According to Justin, I'm an undesirable, whatever. And then the hashtag, and it's going nuts. And I'm like, whoa, this is so. I got goosebumps just thinking about it. But still, that was on Tuesday the 13th in the morning. By the next day, now people are sending me notes with screenshots of the trending number and stuff like that. And that's crazy. The inbox, the DMs that are coming in are berserk. And then the comments, the very specific comments, people are making like, thank you, Martin. Thank you this, thank you that. And actually, I'm at a loss for words. Then here's the most remarkable thing for me up until that point, because there's some silliness after this. But, when you're on social media, we are in an echo chamber. So if you follow Martyupnorth, you're either pro, you're probably leaning a little bit against the climate change. You're probably a hunter and into the environment, and maybe a bit of on the whatever. We're in an echo chamber, and I try to expand my echo chamber, follow a couple of good liberals and whatnot, and there ain't too many of those. And and so normally your retweets have a certain feel to them because you're seeing people that are, call it like-minded. But now I'm like, whoa, I'm seeing retweets of people that I, for lack of a better word, would not normally associate with. Like not that I'm against police officers, but I don't typically hang out. I'm pretty critical of the police. And then I'm even seeing police officers telling me their stories, doctors telling me their stories, liberals telling me their stories, single moms. And it's like, oh, wow, this has broken out of my echo chamber.
Oh, yeah. But I want to talk just a little bit about the notifications and like when you come in and you're getting those kind of notifications. For a person like myself, I don't have 8,000 followers. I have 1,000, but I did the tweet as well. And I ended up with like over 1,000 some retweets and or over hundreds and hundreds of retweets, which is a lot for me, and tons of likes. And I deleted Twitter from my phone and turned off Twitter. I didn't even look at it for a few days when it started to go, because it was like, some of the stuff people were saying, you can't read that. Joe Rogan talks about, you can't read the comments, but it's just overwhelming at a certain point. And I can only imagine what it must have been like for you. But also, I want to talk about this a little bit.
I should have videotaped it, because you could watch the notification counter just going like ding 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 ding
watch
ding
it forever.
Ding, ding. I'd sit there with my wife over my shoulder going, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Watch this, clear them all," and it's like blah, 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 they reappear.
Yeah. So when you're going through that, when you're realizing suddenly that you have a lot of attention, and this is a human experience that is fairly unique to the modern age. I'm not saying it's like people have become famous overnight before, and I'm not saying you became famous overnight. What I'm saying is suddenly from your own room, like from your house, from whatever your safe place is, you can suddenly gain the attention of millions. I mean, there's 130 some thousand impressions on my one tweet. You must have tens of millions on yours.
Yeah. Well, and so I think I heard a question in there, but let me talk a bit here. So one of the first things that happened to me is that I was touched because, and I'll say this: I survived COVID fairly unscathed. Okay. But the reason I got frustrated is of Trudeau's language, but I like a lot of Canadians, I did hurt during COVID. I mean, I haven't had really full-time work in 3 years. I had older children that had gone on to university that came home. The house got crowded all of a sudden. I've definitely been alienated from friends. I haven't traveled on a plane since 2019, I haven't seen, it's been there. So it's been brutal, but I will be truly honest because I'm lucky. I look out my door and there's the mountains there and I bugger off. And I'm also a pretty resilient human being. But even me reading those stories, I'm like, holy shit, like look at these stories. They're amazing. But what happened instantly behind the scenes that people don't know is I got phone calls, I got messages of people telling me their stories, and the stories are devastating. So one of the things I quickly realized is that the policy, like I'm mad at Trudeau, but some people have been hurt by this man or by the policies. I'm actually going to say it. They've been hurt by him. Okay. Let's not beat around the bush. The policies are bullshit and they're hurting people. When you get police officers, when you get soldiers who call you, they're near and dear to me. I love soldiers. When they call you and they said, we got dishonorably discharged for refusing an illegal order. And you go, wow, and it's not a handful of soldiers. It's nearly 10,000. I had cops that said the same thing. I had women tell me about being yelled at. One lady told me, she couldn't wear a mask because she has these fainting spells, and for her, literally having it on her face and she was at a store somewhere and she just wanted to buy something, and somebody started doing this at her, and she's like, I could hear the trembling in her voice. And, she was like, I just want to get out here. Just let me pay. I just want to get out. Let me pay. And the harassment was so hard. She fainted, hit her head hard, and had a freaking miscarriage the next day.
Oh,
okay. So, and then you hear, I'm getting mad now and then you hear about people who said, I couldn't close my business. People in Ontario, it sounds like you guys had it terrible. I couldn't close my business. I had to stay open. And because I stayed open, I had the OPP come to my house every day and give me a summons and give me a summons and give me a summons and give me a summons. She's like, I got $60,000 worth of fines. And I'm still in business, but I'm on a thread. My husband wants to divorce me. I feel like I'm going to lose everything. So I saw that. And so the next really weird moment of this whole thing is, I don't know if you guys saw online, but the Gerald Butts and the Dean Blundell bullshit thing. And
oh yeah. No, I mean the bots. That's why I'm David Bot Parker on Twitter right now, because it's just insane what he's accusing these people of. It's the trucker convoy all over again. It's totally literally lying, straight up lies. And then Justin Trudeau tweets out that it is Russian bots. Like a straight up lie. Our government is absolutely, without question, right before our eyes, again, lying to us.
Yeah,
okay,
and so that
Marty,
aggravated, like that honestly aggravated me. But I'm naive to this. I'm completely naive to this. So naive little Marty sends a note to the two people who came out with that bot Russian conspiracy bullshit was Dean Blundell, shock jock, and Gerald Butts. So naive little Marty, if you go on the Twitter timeline, sends a note underneath, replies to their note, says, "Hey, I'm Marty, and then it kind of looks like I'm the guy who started this movement, and I'm just a Joe guy. And if you want to talk to me, please talk to me, right?" And I can't remember the next tweet after that. So I'm like, "Oh, okay, well that's ignorant." And now I'm honestly feeling that I have to defend these Canadians that have been hurt. So I grab my phone. If you've seen the next tweet, and now I go in my backyard and I'm holding it to my face, and I do a 2-minute and 20-second video, because that's all you can do on Twitter, and I'm repeating what I said. Hey, whatever, you can find that video. And so now what's his name, Gerald Butts, comes back. It's like, "I have no doubt Marty is real, but the question now is who's funding him," or I'm like, "Oh my God." So that was the second thing I learned out of this whole thing. So the first thing I learned is that there are literally it resonated with, trust me, 1 million Canadians who've been hurt by this, maybe more. Like, it's incredible. So that's the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned is the suppression that's being thrown to suppress that story is incredible. So whether it's Gerald Butts, Dean Blundell, other people, I mean, we did funny things. Like, I tried to reach out. Would some journalists pick up on this? But we'll get back to that. So the suppression was insane. And then, and Butts accuses us of being robots, but then he starts sending his army of robots, and I'm picking out the robots and reposting them. Like, it's hilarious. So that's lesson number 2. But lesson number 3 that I learned about this is that nobody's going to help us. The media will not help us. The media will not help anybody. It's an amazing story, but the media won't pick up on it because they're complicit. That's all I can say. They're complicit. They will. So the independents, a few, you guys have picked up on it. I've done great podcasts. I've had a ton of podcasts with independents. I've had Americans call up on us because they're fascinated by it. And then as far as what I would call larger networks, there's Rebel News picked up on it, but and I'm almost thinking I'm changing my opinion on Rebel News. He does a great job reporting, but he's like everybody else. And Brian Lilly did a quick piece on it, and then Alex Pearson did a quick piece on it. What's Fernando's last name or first name?
Fernando from Taxpayers Federation, or
anyways,
that's Franco.
Oh, right. Sorry, you mean Spencer Fernando.
Spencer did a little piece. A couple of independents did little pieces, but they're not going to come to our help. Nobody. And so what I learned subsequently is I actually have had 2 podcasts with an exiled Canadian named Mark Patrone. So Mark's is down in Florida, and after the show we were talking, and Mark said, Marty, and I made the same kind of realization. This is like the convoy. It's part 2, but the convoy, there was still an ability for the liberal machine to demonize the convoy. It's big trucks, smoke, blah, blah, and they're honking and they're making some people pissed off. But he said, Marty, this one, they can't demonize. And he said to me, kudos to you, because I guarantee you that in the last 7 days, they've been digging in your background to try and find dirt on you. And if they had found dirt on you, they would have come out and discredited you, because they can't spin a negative story out of this. They can't say, it's a few unfortunate Canadians who got hurt. There's no way they can spin this in a positive way for the Liberals. And now apparently it's becoming evident that they're not going to discredit me, because I'm like, I look through my background, man. I have 10 years of my life on display. The biggest tweet the biggest video I've ever had before this was me plowing my driveway.
Because you're a real regular Canadian, right? Who just wanted to be left alone by his government. That's probably why you felt a spiritual bond with Alberta.
That is a theme that is near and dear to me. And that's the other thing I've observed now. That's part 4 that I'm starting to observe. There's a coil that's been compressed. and it's about to go boing. And Canadians are like that. We are like that. We are those people that we just want to, I give the example. I got two examples, but I give the example of my grandfather. My grandfather in 1930, my grandfather enlisted like right on the dot in 1939, and then didn't come home until 1946. So it's like 6-7 years of his life put on hold. And he's basically a farmer from Ontario, and he just wants to do his thing. And he's like, hold my beer. Apparently there's some asshole in Germany. We got to go take care of this. So
right.
We're gone. We're going to go take care of it. And then he comes back, and then he just wants to go and finish what he started. And I'm sensing that right now. We've been pushed a little bit too far, and nobody's coming to our rescue. Nobody. I thought somebody would come to our rescue, maybe the Americans or somebody else. Nobody's coming to our rescue.
No, we got to do it
It's
ourselves.
up to us. And David, I actually want to turn this over to you for a second, because you hold an interesting perspective on this entire situation too. What is the significance from a political standpoint, because you're a political organizer, you've worked in offices, what is the significance of this event? Because this seems to me to be unprecedented. And you said earlier, it's probably the biggest event of its nature in Canadian political history. What do you think the political climate around this is right now?
Well, I think it's actually quite fascinating. And I absolutely love what Marty's done and what so many Canadians have done. I joined in it. My girlfriend joined in it. So many people have put their voices out to just basically say, enough is enough. Like, I didn't get to go to my grandma's funeral. You didn't get to go. Did you go to grandma's funeral, Zach? Yeah, I think you were able to go there.
But that's because I could drive there.
Because I couldn't fly. So one of my grandparents died, and I didn't get to go and represent my family there. My brother, who took the vaccine because of coercion, was able to go and represent my family, but the rest of my family was not able to even attend. My mother couldn't attend her mother's funeral.
Terrible.
So to put into perspective, like the level of that's not a level of pain even close to so many of the people that Marty's talked to. Not even close, but it is a level of pain. And what I'm seeing is that all of the people that thought that their government was on their side are waking up to the realization that the government has never been on their side. Right? That truly
it's working against you in some cases.
Yeah, and especially if you're in Alberta.
Well, yeah.
Right? Especially if you're in Alberta. Because if you're an Albertan, that means that the government's been using you as a cash cow for 100 years. $700 billion more have been paid in taxes by Albertans. $700 billion that they have received in services from the federal government. And I'm talking
I think it's 700 billion. Did you say million?
700 billion. I said billion.
Billion, yeah. It's a big number.
With a B. Billion with a B. And so to see what Marty, were you political before? Were you really were you engaged?
I don't want to interrupt your thought, but I'll say it quickly. That's why I got political, because like I said earlier, I'm an Albertan working, and I knew that I have a good life, and it's okay. You're leaving me alone, and I'm paying my taxes. We got shit on. First, the economy took a downturn. That's fine. And then it was like there was an applause. Okay, beginning of the end for oil. And when we started, and we elect Notley and Trudeau, and now I'm literally I'm speaking the big we. We're asking for a bit of help, and we're not getting it. So it's like, oh, I'm not getting help. Okay, that's fine. But then it goes further. Not only am I not getting help, but now they're actually working against me, really piling on. So did I become? I wasn't political, but I became political, and now I'm continuing to be political. So carry on your thought, because I really want to hear your perspective on what's happening in Ottawa, or what are people thinking.
They don't know who they woke up. They don't know the people that they woke up. But the way that I put it is, for the Lord of the Rings fans, the Ents are going to war.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. The bunch of people who never were interested in politics, or they just wanted, like the way Michael Binion talks about this on our podcast in a previous episode called It's About the Power, Not the Money. Alberta, like yourself, you moved to Alberta, you said, I feel like the spirit. And what's the spirit here? I work hard. I build something for myself, and it's mine. That's it. That is the
Alberta, and I help
spirit.
my fellow citizens. I mean,
yes.
What's it like to work up north? I got to tell these stories because, I was working up north one time. I worked up north my whole life, but one day I'm on my way home, just coming off a dirt road. So I got mud in my wheels. And when you got mud in your wheels, you're going to have a vibration. So I'm pulling alongside the road and I'm underneath my truck and I'm just scraping mud out of my wheels. And it's taking me forever because there's a freaking truck stopping every 30 seconds going, "Hey, bud, you need a hand?" I'm like, "Nah, it's okay. I got it, man. I'm just scraping the mud." "All right, thanks." "Stop. Bud, you need a hand?" I'm like, "Holy smokes, dude, I got it." Like, should I just put a sign on the back of my truck? We help each other without needing a law to tell us that we have to help each other. Like
it's the Canadian way. It's the Canadian way. I remember it was a huge storm in Hamilton when I was living there a few years ago. And I was walking to the store to get cigarettes, and I was seeing all of these people shoveling their driveways and helping each other shovel their driveways. And I was like, this right here, this is what Canada is here.
I do that. I do something like that every week. You know, I'm going to Home Depot and I'm buying something. And then there's an older gentleman who's got 2 bags of dirt, and the girl's like, trying to call, "Can somebody help bring these bags of dirt to this gentleman's truck?" I'm like, "I'll do it." And he's looking at me like, "No, that's okay, man. No, I'm just, look at me. I'm stronger than you. I'll bring these 2 bags of dirt to your car." And people look at you like, "Wow, why are we looking at each other like this? This is what we used to do, man."
And I want to jump in here because
politics in Ottawa, or what they've awakened. I love that. Like, let's stay on that.
I want to jump in here because I think that there's something important that we should draw out of that. I think that is the default position of Canadians, right? That's who we are naturally. Yeah. And over the course of the last 2.5 years, Mr. Trudeau has done an incredible job of driving a wedge in between us and pulling us apart. And the first real opposition to that was the convoy, but it was easy enough to paint as an extreme right movement that was in the way and it was dirty and no one liked it. And that isn't true, but it was easy enough to paint it that way. But I think what you said, Marty,
go ahead.
I think what you said, Marty, that is so important is they can't paint this one as anything other than what it is. And what it is just Canadians going back to their default. They're saying, "Hey, this affected me this way, this sucks, this hurt." And even though it is Trudeau must go, it almost feels like a nonpartisan unison because there's liberals doing it, there's conservatives doing it, there's NDP doing it because the shitty policies affected all of them.
Yeah, and the convoy, when I look back on the convoy, had 2 sort of maybe 2-3 missteps. One was that in the end, it became them making a demand. But the demand was loosey-goosey. And then they also had and the demand didn't resonate with everybody else. "We want our freedom back," didn't resonate. And then the leadership of the convoy was a little bit suspicious. This movement isn't making a demand, or what this movement is saying is, we don't want our freedoms back. What this movement is saying is, stop freaking hurting us. Like, is literally something like that. So what do you guys want? Because the other guys was like, "What do you guys want?" "We want to be able to travel." "Well, that sounds pretty gay. You're already allowed to travel." "What do you guys want?" Now is like, "Stop hurting me. Stop hurting me."
Ultimately, we want the guy who insulted us, the guy who made fun of us, the guy who literally caused hate towards us. Like, this is the weirdest part, is what has been exposed is the hypocrisy of the woke agenda. I posted this and I was saying I can't travel, and everyone was like, "You can't actually travel. You're just being like lame." I'm like, "No, I can't, because I don't want to spend 14 days in quarantine."
Yeah,
that's an impossible amount of time for
travel's a privilege. No, it's not. Yeah. Not in a country of 6,000 miles.
It's actually a right. It's in the Constitution that freedom of movement is a right.
Section
and freedom
12.
to leave your country, and in your passport it says you cannot be refused entry back into your country.
Totally.
And yet we're in this upside down crazy world where people are going on my Twitter and calling me like a stupid victim, like I'm claiming to be a victim and all this crazy
whiny
stuff.
A whiny victim. You're whining because victim. I took away something of yours. It's like, wow, you let yourself be coerced so you can get a latte. Like, who's the whiny one?
There's the line. You let yourself be coerced so you can get a latte. Exactly. And it's worse than that, because now we're being gaslit by our government. And we're being gaslit by big tech. Some of the stuff I watched on this, where they would take the number of tweets off of Twitter so that people couldn't see that number. So psychologically, they couldn't get excited about it growing. Right. I watched that happen.
I mean, you don't think that like now, same thing. I totally appreciate the powers that be behind dealing with the algorithm. I mean, there was a time the tag disappeared off the trends. That's one thing. Yeah. Then they countered with their own tags. And then the software would auto finish for you. So you would type Trudeau must go on. I'm like, no, //. I'm not, it was trying to force you. Even I made the mistake a few times going, whoa, how'd this happen? So there's this weird battle going on, a digital battle going on. But what are you guys hearing though? Otherwise, like, is there a sense of panic? Is anybody listening or picking up on this? I mean, I hope they are.
Well, the Liberals are in full meltdown panic mode right now, for sure. There's no question. I mean, the fact that even Trudeau put out a tweet claiming it was Russian bots means that they're bleeding a massive amount of support from their own base. Because that lie is never going to be believed by us. Right. And that lie is never going to be believed by anyone who did the hashtag or even saw the hashtag. But who it will be believed by is his base, is what we call the true anons, right? Basically the people who become so cult-like obsessed with his personality and because he gets attacked so much, there's a tendency, a human tendency that when your leader is constantly attacked, it actually bonds the group.
To protect him,
bonds the group that supports him. So what's happening is he's just trying to shore up support. But look at the Leger poll yesterday. 5% increase for the NDP, 5% drop for the Liberals, basically consistency for the Conservatives.
So that's another place where these kinds of movements manifest themselves. So somebody can say to us, there's no such thing, there's no movement. But then if it drops in the polls, then it correlates. You're going to, I never thought of that. That's interesting. I mean, I've heard people say that they're so desperate right now that, and I'm tending to believe that this whole, farewell tour, Queen Rhapsody thing was literally on purpose to distract. That I'm willing to give up an arm to save the rest of the body at this point. I don't know. I think that's crazy. I think more what happened there. I mean, I imagine that everybody that was in that hotel lobby is fully vetted. Should have been only people who should be there should have been there. For a video like that to be leaked out, either it's on purpose or there's somebody in his entourage who's also saying, holy shit, I've had enough of this guy. Is he being...
I think they leaked it because that's his brand.
Yeah.
Who is Justin Trudeau? He's the clown of Canada. He's the song singer, the sock wearer, he loves to dress up. And one of our most famous men was Mr. Dress Up. So is it any surprise that, he grew up watching Mr. Dress Up, I'm sure. And he just
was a turning point in the movement when Kyle, his brother, got on board and did the tweet. That was a turning point. And even I knew who Kyle was, but when they came across my profile, I went across through it too quickly. And then somebody said, Marty, did you see that? I'm like, back. Whoa. Yeah.
No, that was huge. And I think there were a lot of, Danielle Smith did it, and she's running to be Premier of Alberta.
I talked to Danielle. She's got me on speed dial now.
I have no doubt she loves this stuff. She really does love this stuff, and I'm glad that she did it because a lot of other politicians didn't have the courage, but she did have the courage to speak up. And honestly, she did suffer.
But for her, it puts her for a politician actually, somebody who will benefit from this, for instance, would be a Pierre. Pierre will catch on to this. Sorry, I got something in my eye, but. Pierre can say, look, Trudeau hurt you guys and I won't. Okay. But if somebody like Danielle said, Jason Kenney hurt you guys and I won't, she can't, she's going to have a hard time kind of latching on this one because they're the same brand. So it's going to be interesting. Actually, that's something that I look forward to seeing what happens here in Alberta with.
Yeah, we're close now. It's not. So just so you are aware, I've been touring right now with Graham Wardle, Ty from Heartland, and my friend Drew, and we've been going. Well, we were in Bonnyville, then we were in Edmonton last night. Then we're going to be in Red Deer, Lethbridge, Calgary, because Take Back Alberta is continuing its.
So you're in the province right now?
I live here. Yeah, Red Deer.
I didn't know that.
I'm an Albertan. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I don't know if you've heard of Take Back Alberta, but we were the group that voted Jason Kenney out in the special general meeting. I founded that group. That's my group. So
we should have met earlier. I'm surprised we've never met.
No, I am too. But the thing I wanted to tell you is I've been going into these rooms and speaking with Graham and Drew to educate them on the upcoming annual general meeting and how attending that means we can take the board that Kenny was using to push people down and we could take that board over, right?
Yeah.
On October. But when I bring up your hashtag, the level of cheers and hope that I see in these people's eyes, it is another convoy. Because when I bring it up, I get the kind of cheers that the convoy got when we were speaking. When I said, those men are going to Ottawa, like I was doing this in February, right? I said, those men are going to Ottawa. You can come to a meeting and learn how you can take your province back. Right?
Can you imagine if the convoy had occurred in May? Man, that would have been amazing.
I don't know if it would have been the same. I don't know if it would have been Canadian. I don't know if it would have been.
No, because having that misery of the Canadians and I agree. I mean, I mean, to me,
we needed it to be the winter. Were you
ever lucky enough to go to a Canadian Classic hockey game? Like I went to the first one in Edmonton, and what year was that? Like 2002 or something like that. I mean, it was minus 30 degrees outside. We're wearing sleeping bags. We're cracking our beers. They're foaming. There's Herman Nelsons everywhere, and it's like, who but a bunch of freaking weirdos? We got 30,000 people outside freezing to death watching a hockey game. Who are we?
Man, I love Canadians.
So do I.
Who does that? Who does that? Canadians do. That's us. Yeah. We do that.
That's who we are. That's who we are.
I mean, I get asked those kinds of questions. Like, I go hiking year round. And I sleep in a tent outside, not even in a hut. I sleep in a tent outside in minus 30 degrees Celsius. And I actually find it quote unquote enjoyable because in the winter, the sounds of the wilderness are completely different and you can go places that you can't go in the summer. So, and that's the other, that's being Canadian for me well, there's a lot of things about being Canadian. And one of the things we didn't, when I said my grandfather went overseas and fought, we defend the underdogs. And that's supposed to be in our DNA, man. The blue helmets, the peacekeepers, the guys who went overseas and put their lives on hold to go kick butt. And wow, how did we forget that? How did we suddenly get to a point where we got a leader that says, do we tolerate a group?
Well, interesting. This is interesting. I want to go into this because I think I have an answer to that. Because the whole purpose of Zach and I's starting this podcast was literally to do actually what you did. Wouldn't you agree, Zach? Literally what you did was why we started this podcast, because we wanted Canadians to start sharing their stories of excellence, start sharing their stories of character, start sharing their stories of success, right? And have you heard of Humans of New York?
Yes.
So we wanted the Canadian story to be an audio-visual version of Humans of New York for Canada because we didn't believe the Canadians knew what they were. Right. We didn't believe that they had a true and deep sense of identity. But what you did was you got them all to do that on Twitter, right? Which is why this was such an important interview for us because we want Canadians to know what they are. And here's what I'm going to say. A lot of the Canadians who got vaccinated did it because they thought they were protecting other people.
Right.
They did it because the government and the medical system told them, if you do your part, then people won't die. And a lot of Canadians were more than willing to line up to do that for that reason alone. And that is Canadian, right? It is Canadian to protect one another. And that's what was preyed on. And now Justin Trudeau is preying on Canadians' love of minorities, love of the underdog, love of people who have been treated poorly, and saying that we are the ones that hate these minorities, that we are the danger to the underdog. Whereas we're sitting here being like, we're not the danger to the underdog. We are the underdog. You're the government. Yeah. And we're saying you're abusing us. And I think the message we got to get out, the message we have to get out to our fellow Canadians is, we have no hate in our hearts towards our fellow Canadians. None. Zero. I'm not even mad at people who got the vaccine. I'm not even really mad at the people who enforced a lot of the vaccine stuff.
I actually have 2-3 thoughts that are coming through my mind. One is, no, we're not. Let me try and put them in order. Yes, I do think I did empower people. I see that. There's that group of people saying, I had the courage. You gave me the courage to do this, because what I asked to do was pretty easy. It's literally put a picture of yourself out there. And in those instances, I make sure I go and comment. And I've noticed other Canadians saying that. You're not alone, be brave, because people are literally saying it's making me nervous to put that picture out there. And then there's also a tendency, apparently it's been noticeable that more people have reactivated their Twitter accounts just to be able to do this, which is absolutely crazy. Now, I want to tell a quick story about being Canadian, two of them. When I rebutted Gerald with the video of myself, and I was kind of near the end, I was getting agitated. So I provided that video to Gerald. You can see my tweet, and I'm like, "Hey, Gerald, this is who I am." And then at the end, I'm like, sorry for sounding angry near the end of the video, but Trudeau does that. And people picked up on that. They're like, holy shit, Marty, you're fighting back, but and then you're mad at yourself for getting angry while you're fighting back, because I don't want to fight. I'd rather not fight, but if I have to fight, I'll fight. And I want to tell this story because somebody else, it came up and it reminded me. It's my own, it's a personal story of mine of who we are as Canadians. I was in Nepal in 2014, and I'm an outdoor guy. So I went to base camp, and you can go there. You need a guide. No matter what, you need a guide. So I had a guide, and we're on our way back, and we're stopping to take a break. And there's another person, another tourist with his guide. And I'm just sitting there, and this tourist is giving his guide shit. Okay. And I'm a Canadian. I'm just listening, whatever. But eventually I can't take it anymore, and I have to say something. But the tourist was giving his guide shit for the fact that the tourist had blisters on his feet and uncomfortable shoes. And he literally was giving his guide shit for not telling him to cut his nails, his toenails. Okay. So he's freaking chewing him out. And I'm like, hey, dude, do me a favor, man. Calm it down. Just calm it down. And he turns to me and he says, stay out of it, Yank. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, problem number one, stay out of it, Yank. This is none of your business. Problem number one, I'm not a Yank. I'm a Canadian. Problem number two, it is my business now because I'm a Canadian, and what we do is we defend the people that can't defend themselves. And right now you're chewing the shit out of that guy and he can't defend himself, and you're making me mad. So, and then I literally said to that guy, I'm like, you know what I feel like doing right now? I feel like giving him 10 times the amount of money you're paying him, and then he can be my guide, and you can fucking find your way home tonight. Like, good. Don't piss us off, man.
That's
otherwise,
Canadian.
Let me live. That's it. But if you piss me off and you start the fight, I'll finish it.
Yes. Well, that's how we play hockey.
Oh, well, now you're talking. Now you're really talking near and dear to me.
Oh man, we're so close to season, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah, love hockey.
We're closing in on the end of the time that we have here, but I did have one last question for you. How can Canadians help you right now, as you're now the center of attention and people are attacking you? How can we help you, the underdog who's fighting the government? How can all the people who got hope from you, how can we help you?
Yeah, so I don't need help in terms of defending myself. What I've realized now is there is a message we need to keep sharing. We need to help each other out. Not me. We need to help each other out. So that's big. So if you see anybody being attacked, help them. But and what I've been telling people is, you don't overturn a government in this country. You don't overturn a government. You get one chance. You get a vote. And the problem with the system of a democracy like ours is everybody gets a voice, which is fair. I totally love that. But it used to rely on the fact that the populace had to be fairly educated on issues. And so and that's what's been happening. We're unable to properly educate ourselves for all sorts of reasons. So what this movement is doing is, while we're recognizing that there's people that have been hurt, we still have to be patient until the next election. And in the meantime, let's remember who we are. Let's help each other out, and let's take every opportunity to encourage that, to help with that courage, and to re-educate and to break down that misinformation. So, and I'm not going on the attack. I'm not attacking the Gerald Butts. I'm blocking them. I'm blocking the Dean Blundells. You guys, whatever, get blocked. Don't worry about it. And I'm going to, everybody else who is salvageable, I will will work. And I swear everybody is salvageable. Some will take longer. And you mentioned something along the lines, and it made me think of something. There are people who've come back. So, somebody said they weren't willing to forgive because I made some nice comments and I invited some people, and they said, Wasn't he whatever pushing for the vaccine mandates? I'm like, he was, but I'm forgiving him. And if he can be an ally, then I'm not holding a grudge, so it's done. Now we're moving forward, and let's take the next few years to re-educate ourselves and vote properly.
I love it. That's exactly the message of Take Back Alberta is you got to learn how your system works if you want to change it. And most people don't know how their system works. Now,
if Trudeau wants to throw himself on his sword and quit between now and then, perfect. I mean, I'm going out hunting. I leave tomorrow night, and I'm going by Grand Cache, and I'll be along the Berlin River. And I don't come looking for me on the Berlin River. I shouldn't have said that, but nobody will because I'm so far. And I'm coming back home in 10 days. I will have no cell phone, nothing like that. They don't work out there. But if I come back, so please maintain this movement, folks. Do what I just said. Talk to each other. Keep sharing. Don't get crazy don't do bot campaigns. Don't play their game. Our game is just educate yourself, support each other. And if I come back in 10 days and this is still trending and still going on, I will be happy. Then I'll resume the fight alongside you. But sorry, folks, you gotta fight it out without me for a short while.
Well, you've started the battle. We'll wage it while you're off reconnecting with nature, like so many Canadians love to do.
Thank you for listening to The Canadian Story. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The CAD Story. That's the CAD Story. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Let's work together to remind Canadians how great their country is.